Bonjour à tous, c'est Johara Gemma sur la route avec Johara Gemma. Hello everyone, this is Johara Gemma. Today I am here with the rabbi and we will be talking about Shabbat. So Rabbi is going to be answering questions.
So I just want to start uh, where Shabbat comes from in the Torah. It's actually a commandment, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the book of Deuteronomy, it says, "Observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as the Lord our God has commanded us." Right? It says, in fact, one of the commandments to observe the Shabbat and to remember Shabbat. Zachor and Shamor. On 6 days you shall labor and do your work. But on the seventh day, it's a Sabbath for the Lord our God. We shall not work. In fact, no one in your family or your animals shall work. So it's a day of rest. And it's really very healthy, actually, to have a day of rest so that we're not going 7 days a week working and tiring our bodies out, along with our animals as well. So this is a day of rest. It's really a gift from God to take the day off. And it's very important. It says here, "Remember that we were slaves in the land of Egypt, and God freed us. And God has commanded us to observe the Sabbath day." So it's very important for us to have a day off and to observe and remember the Sabbath day. Now, one question that I've had is, how do we know that Shabbat falls on Friday evening and Saturday? In other words, Saturday, it begins Saturday, Friday night before, usually slightly before sunset. And then, of course, it ends with 3 stars in the sky on Saturday night. So how do we know it's Friday night and Saturday? Because when we were in the desert and when we left Egypt, we received manna, food from the sky, and received a double portion on Friday. So we would not have to collect the manna that landed on the ground or landed on the dew to protect the food, the manna. A double portion came on Friday. That's how we know Shabbat is really Friday night and Saturday. Okay.
So, I know a lot of people are curious about the wine, about the challah. So explain to everyone how we celebrate Shabbat with the blessing of the wine, the candles,
Right.
the challah.
So, thank you. So we begin Shabbat. It's actually called Erev Shabbat, Friday evening, or Shabbat Eve, which refers to Friday evening, and we proceed all the way to Saturday, Shabbat itself. Now, what we usually do is have what's called a Kiddush, a blessing over the wine. The word Kiddush, or Kiddush, means sanctification. We say the blessing over the wine. And we actually have wine for all our holidays, but especially when Shabbat, we consecrate it with wine, kosher wine. We need a extra symbol on the wine signifying that the wine is kosher. And we also say a blessing over 2 loaves of bread. And Friday evening we say from the book of Genesis the following: Borei Peri Hagafen. This in turn we follow with that Kiddush, which reminds us of the Exodus from Egypt. We say, Litziat Mitzrayim, the going out of Egypt with the blessing over the Kiddush, the wine. We also call it an Oneg Shabbat, which means a Shabbat delight. And sometimes we gather on Friday evening, and sometimes we're with a community, and we have singing, study, cultural discussions, and also socialization. That's very important, to be with other people. You know, it says that we should never separate ourselves from the community. So we need to be a part of a community. It's very important. So we're also, after we say the blessing over the wine, some wash their hands. We say the blessing over the candles. Now we usually have at least two candles. In Hebrew we say nerot. And we usually light it approximately 20 minutes before sundown, prior to Shabbat or the festival. Shabbat, the two candles refer to the two versions of the fourth commandment, which are in Exodus chapter 20 verse 8 and Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 12. The candle lighting in Hebrew is called Hadlikat Nerot. In Yiddish we bench licht. The candles are usually lit, and usually the candles are lit by a woman of the house, but other family members who are present can light the candles as well. So we're saying the Kiddush first, right? Well, candles first, then the Kiddush, and we also eat what's called challah. One challah, it's usually a braided bread, or chalot, two breads. This is a portion, or that when we make challah, this is actually one of the commandments that a woman should make challah. And I know some Reform and Conservative faiths do not have a requirement to make challah, and also in the Orthodox tradition to do mikvah. That's immersing in a body of water. Could be a spring, could be the ocean, but a mikvah. And also it says when you make the bread, it says here, you take a batch of dough that was twisted off and set it aside as an offering to the tabernacle. Now that's in the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 18 through 21, and then to the temple in Jerusalem. Today, challah refers to the special Shabbat loaf, which is braided to remind us of the portion twisted off as an offering. We usually use two chalot, which are used at each Shabbat meal to remind us of the double portion that I spoke about earlier on Friday evening, which refers to the manna that was available to the Israelites in the wilderness each Friday, enough to last through Shabbat. And that's from the book of Exodus, chapter 16, verse 13 through 26. By the way, if we're buying challah or chalot, once again, it must have the hechsher, that it's kosher and parv, right? We do not mix milk and meat. So we're looking for the word parv, which means it's good for milk, it's both actually. You can have it with milk or meat, but we're having it usually on Friday and Saturday to enjoy the challah. But if some of us now are not eating bread, we're watching our carbs. Some nowadays, there might even be, what do you call it? When you don't have, anyway, special bread for those who are watching.
So it could be any bread in that situation. It could
be any kosher bread.
Kosher bread, as long as it's kosher bread.
Kosher and parv.
And parv.
Right, kosher and parv. And so we're going to say what's called the hamotzi. That's a blessing over the bread. And we say in English, who brings forth bread from the earth. And it's taken from the Psalms, chapter 104, verse 14. and you can read that as well. We also have what's called, when we go to service, Kabbalat Shabbat. We want to welcome the Shabbat, and we say that usually in service. We're welcoming Shabbat. And once again, it's very important to be with people and not to separate yourself from the community. Also at the Shabbat table, we like to do Zemirot. Zemirot are songs sung during the Shabbat meals. We make it a very happy time. You know, I'll tell you an interesting story. A rabbi told me that he was having a Shabbat meal with his wife and family, and he had candles on the table. And the way the houses were set up, it was back to back. And the neighbor said, "Wow, that's really special, having a candle-lit dinner." So, of course, it was Shabbat. So, and we sing a beautiful song called Shalom Alechem, which is peace be unto you. This is a traditional Jewish greeting. It means, basically, it represents Alechem HaShalom, meaning unto you be peace. And we sing the song Shalom Alechem. It's a lovely hymn that's sung on Friday evening after services. It's about 300 years old, which is quite young in our Hebrew prayers. It's based on a very interesting little story in the Talmud. The Talmud is our oral Torah. We have a written Torah, and we have an oral Torah. The rabbis tell us when a person returns home from the synagogue on Friday evening, 2 angels go with him. And a good angel, and there's a bad angel. They accompany the man or the woman into their house, and if the house is in good order, if the Sabbath lights are lit, and the table is set, the good angel says, "May it be God's will that the next Shabbat be as this one." And the evil angel has to say, "Amen." If, on the other hand, the angels find that the house is neglected and not properly prepared for the Sabbath, the evil angel says, "May the next Sabbath be as this one." And the good angel has to answer, "Amen." But the main idea of the song is peace. And in it we ask that the angel of peace may come and bless us with peace. The idea of peace, and we do hope for peace in the world, is very important to our people. We have always loved peace. We want peace in our homes, on the street, in the classroom. We want the weak and the strong, the small nations and the big nations to live together in peace and harmony. And we look forward with great hope to the day when there will be peace all over the world. Now let me sing the song Shalom Alechem. Shalom Alechem, Malechei HaSharet, Malechei Elyon. Mi melech malechei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Boachem leshalom malechei hashalom malechei elyon. Mi melech malechei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruchuni leshalom, malechei hashalom, malechei elyon. Mi melech, malechei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Seichem leshalom, malechei hashalom, malechei elyon. Amin melech malachei amlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That was beautiful, Rabbi.
Assisting.
My pleasure.
Yes.
So another thing that you always say that is really important always, if there's any other holiday that falls on Shabbat, it's always important to always observe Shabbat first, correct?
Well, sometimes we have another holiday that might fall before or Shabbat. So what we're going to do is light a big tall candle and light that candle. So we're not in desecration of the Shabbat. So we can light for the holiday before Shabbat and take that same light and use it again for Shabbat. So we're not desecrating the holiday. And what's important too is on Friday we have to prepare for Shabbat. Now I know in Israel some people do not work on Friday, or they might have a half a day. So we're going to clean the home for Shabbat. We're going to prepare the food and bake the challah if we're baking challah. We're going to bathe and, for some, visit a mikvah. We're going to dress appropriately for Shabbat. And some put money in a charity box, a tzedakah box. And once again, we're lighting the candles, beginning the Shabbat. And some go to services. We bless the children by the parents. We sing Shalom Aleichem, the song we just sang. A husband usually sings A Woman of Valor. It's a selection from Proverbs 31 to bless his wife. She's a woman of valor. There's no one else that can find such a beautiful woman. Remember, you are a prince in the house, and she is your princess. And you should never forget that. If you treat each other like royalty. And after all, we are a kingdom of priests and priestesses. And we, once again, we say the Kiddush, and then we wash our hands with an appropriate blessing. We say the Hamotzi, the blessing over the bread. We eat our meal, we sing songs, and we end with the grace after meal, their Berkat Hamazon.
That's beautiful, Rabbi. Thank you so much for all this knowledge. Well, I am very happy, and I hope that you all learned a lot from the Rabbi, what I believe in and what Jews believe in and what our Shabbat is. So if you all have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments, and Rabbi will be very happy to answer all of you. So that wraps it up for today. Many blessings to all of you. Peace. Au revoir.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Good Sabbath.